wrong, but no one could tell him. So he got up and went to Connell's office.
What happened? Somebody die?
Bobby asked Connell what had happened. Connell told him that they had closed the mobile phone division in Newport News. He also mentioned that they had integrated the ship system with a rail product. Corporate speak for, we're cutting jobs but making it sound innovative. Bobby then went to Sally's office and asked her what had happened. Sally introduced him to Dick Landry from the legal department. Landry explained to Bobby that the company had made a division change and that they would provide him with benefits to compensate for the 12 years they had worked together.
You're 12 years with us entitled to 12 weeks full pay and benefits.
Bobby asked if they were firing him. Sally assured him that they would also provide opportunities for further employment services. He angrily asked if Gene knew about their decision. Sally asked him to sit down, but he refused and left the room.
You know what, Sally? F*** off.
One day he's Bruce Wayne controlling Wayne Enterprises. The next he's Bobby Walker standing outside GTX with a cardboard box. From billionaire to broke, guess even Batman can't escape corporate downsizing. Bobby then started packing up to leave. Bobby's secretary asked what they had said about her job. He told her he hadn't asked anything. At Gene's office, Phil was waiting for him. Gene noticed Phil's demeanor and asked what was going on. His assistant told him that Sally had fired some of the ship system sales group workers.
No, but I've been hiding in here all day.
They closed Mobile and Newport News.
Gene asked Phil if Sally had fired him as well. Phil replied that she hadn't and admitted that he had been hiding in the office all day. Phil shouted, saying he would never let anyone fire him after 30 years of service. 30 years of loyalty gone in 30 seconds. Turns out dedication doesn't come with job security. Back at Bobby's house, Maggie Walker, Bobby's wife, came. Maggie went outside and saw Bobby cooking. She asked him why he was home at that time, and he told her that he was making dinner. Maggie told him they were going to Jack's house that Bobby attended the job interview. The interview mentioned a great recommendation from Dan Mass. The position has a $90,000 salary plus commission and bonuses. The man told him that even though he can't promise him anything, with Dan's recommendation and his resume, he seems like the right person for the job. Finally, a lifeline, or so it seems.
With Dan's recommendation and your resume, you seem like the right fit for the job.
But when he called later to ask about the job, he was told that it was not available anymore. Later, Bobby, heartbroken, watched as the person he sold his car to drive it off. First the golf membership, now the car. Bobby is watching his old life disappear piece by piece. At a party, Phil approached Gene and revealed that Sally had fired him. Gene went to his office and confronted Sally, who handed him a paper saying he was also fired. Gene and Phil discussed their long dedication to the company, feeling betrayed. Gene went home but ignored his wife's calls to go upstairs. Meanwhile, Phil started a new job on the factory floor at Joanna's office, surprising Bobby and the team. Joanna asks Phil a question about whether he smokes or not. When he tells her that he smokes sometimes, she tells him to quit. He then leaves for the office.
You're pushing 60 and you look like hell. You're gonna have a rough time out there.
Bobby goes to Phil's new office and talks to him about the separate office, saying the company has to pay extra. Phil replies that this is the least the company can do for him. Phil then asks Bobby about the dress code, and Bobby tells him it is fine to wear casual clothes. At home, Bobby talks on the phone with a mortgage company. He tells them that he spoke with someone from their office last week, and they said he hadn't paid for this month. However, if they want, he can write a check and send it to them. Maggie joins him from upstairs and listens to the conversation while smiling. After he finishes the call, she asks him who he was talking to, and Bobby tells her it was the mortgage company.
Which one, American Express?
Maggie tells Bobby that Yvette asked her to work tomorrow night. Bobby replies that it's New Year's Eve. Drew joins them and asks Bobby if he can drive him over to Kyle's. Bobby tells him he is busy. Disappointed, Drew goes back upstairs.
Halo? Should play some Xbox.
Oh, hey, Bobby, hang on a sec.
Maggie explains that Drew doesn't have an Xbox anymore. He gave it back because he knew they couldn't afford it. Nothing hits harder than a kid quietly sacrificing something they love because they see their parents struggling. Bobby then goes back to Jack's workplace and asks if he can get a job.
I need a job, Jack.
He then started working that same day. Bobby starts carrying timber as Jack works in construction. Bobby gets tired and Jack tells him to carry 2 more. He has played a billionaire night, but Bobby refused to go. Maggie got upset and went back inside the house. Bobby followed her. They started arguing, questioning why he wasn't going with them and asking why he hated Jack. Bobby then told her that he had been fired.
They
fired me today.
Annoyed, Maggie asked about Gene, reminding Bobby that he had promised to secure his job. Bobby told her that Gene hadn't been in the office all day and that Sally Wilcox had made the decision. Amazing how fast "we're in this together" turns into "sorry, nothing I can do." Meanwhile, Phil went to his house. He asked his daughter Susan Rico where her mom was, and she told him that she had a headache. As Phil was about to go upstairs, his daughter called him and told him that they had found out their next trip would be to Italy. She asked if she was going too. Phil told her she would, but he wasn't sure.
I can go, right?
A vacation to Italy sounds great, if you still have a job to come back to. Phil went to the bedroom, and when his wife saw him, she asked if he had heard that Colin was fired and whether they were okay. Phil assured her and told her that they needed to get ready for Salinger's dinner, because when your financial world is crumbling, the best solution is a fancy dinner.
You don't have to come if you're not feeling up to it.
Just give me a minute.
At the same time, Gene is standing numbly in front of a table, putting ice in his bottle. His wife came up behind him and told him that they had to leave early, reminding him that they shouldn't be late again. Bobby, Maggie, and their children arrived at Jack's home. They went inside and greeted everyone. Jack asked Bobby how he was transitioning from his high-paying Africa job to another one. While they were talking, the birthday lady came in, and Bobby told her that she didn't look 35, but more like a 21-year-old. They both laughed. She invited Bobby to have a drink.
Why don't you grab yourself a drink, Bobby? We got some margaritas in the blender.
At the Man of the Year celebration, the host introduced Gene McClary, Executive Vice President of GTX, as one of its first employees. Gene took the stage, recalling his patience during tough times for the company and praising James for growing GTX into a massive organization. Gene then invited James to the front. James thanked the audience and acknowledged that building GTX wasn't easy, but it was made possible with Gene's help.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Without a doubt, you don't build a company like...
If handing out pink slips by the thousands and then awarding yourself for visionary leadership isn't a corporate villain arc, then I don't know what is. Even Lex Luthor would be taking notes. The next day, Bobby went to a job training. When he got there, Danny met him and asked where he was going. He told him it was an orientation and then pointed him to the room. Inside, a woman told them the requirements for their work and that fear and anxiety were invaluable in a job.
Neighbors, dentists, anybody, and everybody.
Back in GTX, Gene stayed in a motel. In the morning, he went into an office for an interview, but he is told his appointment is actually for next week and not this Friday.
You say you have an appointment?
Yes, at 10.
I don't see it.
Phil meets James for lunch. He brought up his job opening about foreign executives and he was interested, but James told him that he can't hire anyone above 30 for this job.
I wouldn't hire anyone over 30 for that job. It's a killer.
Apparently, decades of experience mean nothing if you're on the wrong side of 30. Later that night, Gene found Phil angry, throwing stones at the GTX building from afar. Phil told him of his financial stresses, but there is nothing they could do. Back at his house, Phil washed the dishes. He then went to his garage and smoked before getting in his car. He closed the garage door, started his